number one, I said, I'm never sitting on this side of the table again. And he just kind of looked at me. I said, I'm going to play this game better than you've ever played it. And I said, and I'm not taking advantage of people like you're taking advantage of me.
Welcome back to another episode of Feedback with your man, Nick Alfano. I have a massive, it's going to be our largest guest so far. So this is our biggest guest to date. This gentleman and I go back maybe 2.5, 3 years now. We've bumped into each other. We've been, similarly situated in some other groups. And when I first heard of this guy, one of the statistics that was touted blew my mind, and then we started talking more and more, and then when I saw him talk, I see exactly how he was able to pull this off. But I'm going to bring on right now my man Eddie Wilson, aka the King of Exits. There was one particular year, and I'll let him kind of dive into it, where he literally had 78 exits in one calendar year. Since then, I think he might be over 100. Last I checked, he was in the 90s, but again, I'll let him speak to that. And what's the most beautiful thing about this guy, and the people I try to bring to you guys on this podcast, are people that have the similar core values, like we're in alignment from a core value standpoint. So our entire mission is impact over income. This gentleman takes that to a whole nother level. He has a company called Impact Others. He's constantly doing stuff stateside as well as overseas, and just really trying to take everything that he's built and acquired and impact as many lives as possible. He's got AAPL. We can go on Empire, right? I'm a certified Empire guy, so we hung out in Atlanta a while back, and I went through his Empire course. He's an ops machine, which kind of gives you a hint as to how he was able to pull off 78 exits. I'm going to stop talking about him. I'm going to let him talk about himself, and I'm going to pull some things out of him. Another thing I will touch on, because I do like to actually kind of timestamp these, so when people watch them maybe a year from now, in 1 hour, his team, Ohio State, is playing, I guess it's our team. I'm in Nashville, so Tennessee Vols, the Vols are obviously huge, but the reality is, in my experience in Nashville, there's more Bama fans because we're about 3 hours each way than there are Vol fans. But Tennessee Vols are playing Ohio State. I think you guys are ranked 8 and we're 9 or something like that, right?
That's true.
So anyway, that'll be interesting. But yeah, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you.
This has been a long time coming for me.
Yeah, glad to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time, because I know you've got the world's craziest schedule. So
glad to be here.
Let's jump into it, man. Let's kind of start with, and I'm sure you're tired of telling the story, but I don't think anyone has a story like it. How do we kind of explain to the audience, because some people have cognitive dissonance when they're like 78 in a year, 100 plus. What does an exit mean? Who is this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I really didn't have a formal education in business ops or M&A or anything like that, and really was just kind of an interesting journey. But it did lead up to that 1 year where I did have, it was actually 76 instead of 78. So I'll just correct you a little bit, but it would just be specific. I had 86 companies total. I sold 76 of them in one calendar year. And then now I'm over 100 and there's a couple that are in dispute right now of whether or not they count or not. But I'm in the 100 and teens, like 113, 114 now. And so just in the last 12 months, we've exited 4 more companies, and then I've got 2 or 3 more on the block. So.
And for those, because I've got a pretty wide, audience base that different parts of their journey as entrepreneurs, They are primarily entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even think about the word exit.
Right.
Some of them have never even built the deck and know what an exit strategy may be. So when you say exit, can you kind of just, clarify the different ways that shows up?
Sure. And I think, and just to clarify as well, these companies were actually operational companies. They had employees. I was overseeing them. I typically am more of a, I would say a data analyst at the top. Like I had CEOs that were running these companies. But an exit just means that I hit it, that company hit its ceiling, or I hit my ceiling with that company and decided to move on and sell. Now, there's lots of ways to exit. You can take a company public. You can sell it to a private equity firm. You can pass it on to heirs. Technically, if you ESOP it, an employee stock ownership program, is truly an exit. So there's a lot of ways to exit companies. Most of the way, typically the way that I exit companies is to sell them to larger private equity firms. So I have a very specific process on how I build companies, how I create a succession plan and sell them. And typically it's to either a larger strategic or a private equity firm.
And so when you go into a company, you already have kind of some buyers in mind, right? Otherwise, you don't even look at it, I assume? Okay.
Typically, I mean, now it didn't start that way. It started with an accidental exit. Like I actually got taken advantage of my very first exit. Really left about 30 million on the table on my very first exit.
The broadcasting company?
So it was a marketing agency. Yeah. And left quite a bit of money on the table. And that day, realizing that people were playing the game at a different level than I was, I decided that I would get better at that game. I never wanted to sit on that side of the table again and feel the way I felt. And so that was a lot of the motivation behind it. The second big motivator was the fact that, even though I was being taken advantage of, they still were giving me 7 times EBITDA, right? So a 7 multiple. And while I wasn't ready to sell and it was kind of a forced exit and a crazy story, I still was getting 7 times EBITDA. So what I realized, and just trying to get to a place of gratitude, because I was super frustrated and pissed off about it, was that, man, I actually get 7 years of my life back. If I just would have did the same exact thing, no growth, no loss,
Sure.
I really could live my life 7 years from what I was experiencing today. I could live it that day. And so I found this place of gratitude, and then realized, like, where else in the world could I do something like that? I can't do that with real estate. I can't do that with anything else. Build something of value, and based on its perceived value or its future value or its output, then they'll give you a multiple on that. Well, to me, it was like, well, if I could do that every day, why wouldn't I just create the machine that allows me to live the life that everybody wants to live in the future, but today, by building things and exiting them at a larger multiple?
And I think what's insane, and as you explain that, I hope you guys are like, you might have to rewind and unpack what my man's talking about, because when I first got into entrepreneurship, and you got to go through your phases. I was like a hustler, and I had side projects, and work your face off. And most business owners don't own a business; their business owns them. They don't know, they don't have an exit strategy.
It's very true.
They want to build like a lifestyle business or a lifestyle brand. So when you say exit, so like when I have these conversations with some of my guys, depending on where they're at in their journey, they freak out, and you hit it on the head early. You're going to exit some way, right? Whether it's succession, whether it's some people just, their business just falls apart.
Death, it could be anything, right? You will exit.
When did you find out that you left money on the table? Because you got a 7x EBITDA, which is,
good, decent.
Yeah, exactly. I'm used to playing in the 3s and 4s unless you've really done something magical with that company, right?
Sure.
So 7 is great, but what did you learn that it was worth, and when did you learn that?
Yeah, so I had contracts. So I had a big ad agency, and we were the agency of record for a couple of big companies. I had taken the contract off of another agency. I didn't know that I had taken it. I was just bidding for stuff. And then I needed to source capital, and I needed about 30 million, and 22 to 28 million to be exact. And because in the advertising world, what would happen is that, like, let's take a Subway sandwich chain, right? Like, so I had to book ads for them. Well, they wouldn't pay me for 90 days. So I would buy all their, billboards and radio and television. I had to put that money out.
Yep.
And then I'm sitting on it for, 30, 60, 90 days waiting for the repayment. Now, my margin was 15% on that. So you'd book these big, ad campaigns for them, wait for the repayment, but you had to hold all that capital. So I was trying to source capital. And so I went to this M&A group. I actually just went to Merrill Lynch. And so I said, hey, I'm this investment banker. I said, I really need this capital. I have a contract. Can you essentially source capital for a percentage for me? He said, sure. So he actually lined up the capital. I did not know enough to ask, where's the capital coming from? So they kept pushing and pushing, and I signed the contract. So now I've extended. Now I'm actually buying ads. I don't even have the capital to buy the ads. So I've already booked the ads on credit on national, radio, TV, billboards. I'm overextended, like to the point where, like, if I don't come up with this money, I'm going bankrupt. Like, I'm way over my skis, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in my 20s, and so we sit down and at the closing table, and I thought, okay, thank God, like, we're finally here. I'm going to get the capital. I'm going to be good. And then there was a bunch of Wall Street looking guys sitting across the table from me, and they said, hey, today is not going to go the way that you think it's going to go.
How old were you again? Just for
24, 25. Yeah. Wow. And I said, what do you mean? And I take that back. When I sold let me correct that. 24 was when I sold the TV product. The program. This was 27. I was almost 28 years
But
old.
at 27, 28, to sit in a room with Wall Street guys asking for 22 to 28 million, I think that's something that like a lot of people are going to be jaw on the floor listening to this, because that takes a special person.
I didn't know to ask for it. I just found a guy. The guy was like, "Hey, this is where we'll go," and I just thought this guy knows what he's doing, so I'll just follow him. And I need the money. He pretty much told me you've got the money, so I thought, well, I mean, I think I can trust him, so I'm going to go for it.
Okay, so let's go back to it. You're sitting
so we're
across
sitting
from
these guys,
sharks.
and then they say, say it's not going to go, and I'm thinking, oh crap, they're going to delay me another week, and man, what am I going to do? And am I going to be able to, like, so I'm kind of freaking out, thinking I don't have any more capital. I'm extended. And I said, well, okay, so how long is it going to take you to get the capital? They're like, no, you don't understand. They said, today we're actually going to buy your company. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, what do you mean you're going to buy my company? And they're like, no, we're going to buy it because we already know where you're at. And I said, and I'm looking at the guy from Merrill, and I go, like, do you know? And he's like, looking at me like, and I said, okay, I'm sorry, who are you? And they're like, oh, we're, the largest ad agency in the world. And
so you had no intention of exiting? You didn't even know what?
No.
Like this was your first sale? Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought I was getting a loan at this point.
Exactly.
And they said, the representatives of that group, they said, do you know where you got the contract from that you signed? I said, no. They said, you took it from us.
Oof.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I didn't know that. I literally just was bidding on contracts, just trying to get work. And they're like, yeah, that was our contract, and we're going to take it back off of you. And I was like, okay. And so at first I kind of was listening, and then I just got mad. And I was like, you know what? You're not doing that. I said, I'll go find. They were like, we already know where you're at. They're like, we know that if you walk out of here and you don't have capital lined up, you're done. And they were like, is that the game you want to play? And that's why they had stretched me out so long. And I got mad. I told them I was going to get a lawyer. I used words like extortion and anything else I could come up with. And they just kind of sat there super calm, just looking at me like, all right, whatever, like get it out of your system. I'm in my 20s. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I said, okay, how long do I have? And they were like, till tomorrow. And this is in Chicago. I said, I have till tomorrow. And they're like, yeah, we're going to have paperwork ready for you tomorrow to sign and sell. And I was like, man. And so I was devastated because in my mind, I was headed towards this place. Like I did understand enterprise value, and I knew if I landed this contract and began to use this contract, I knew what agencies sold for, and they were getting rolled up all the time. You'd go get a big contract, and then they would give you serious,
so you had some knowledge, like you said, enterprise value,
yeah.
and there was a potential exit horizon.
And in my mind, it was 3, 4, 5, 6 years, or at least I was building something for the future.
What were you doing EBITDA wise?
So I was doing, let's see, about 2 million.
Okay.
Yeah, EBITDA. So I was doing okay. I was doing about 26, 27 million in top line and about 2 in EBITDA. And so anyways, long story short, I go home and I'm mad. I'm frustrated. I'm, mad at the Merrill guy because I thought he should know. I didn't know anything. And I really got to a place. I had a very emotionally intelligent mother. I had a lot of loss in my younger life and lost a brother and a sister. And my mom would always talk to me about rehearsing gratitude. And she would say, Eddie, whenever you lose something, if you can find gratitude for the loss, learning the lessons, whatever it is, then it's a catalyst for massive growth. And so going through that with my sister, the loss of my sister, my mom would be like, hey, let's talk about your favorite time. I understand you're hurting, but let's talk about your favorite time with her. And she would give me to rehearse gratitude, which allowed, that to be a catalyst in my life. So that's always been a driving principle. So,
I like the way you say it too, though. Rehearse gratitude.
You have to rehearse it. It's not real at first.
Yeah.
You got to get to a place where you start thinking about it.
Yeah, because you hear practice gratitude, you hear it, right? But then rehearsing it, that's a different frame.
It's a replaying of it over and over again.
I like that.
And so I get up in the morning. I didn't sleep much. Hop in my car, start heading towards Chicago. And I got about an hour commute in that morning. And I'm like, okay, what can I be grateful for? I'm in the valley, man. This is bad. Like, this is not good. They're taking my, and worse, it wasn't that they were taking my company. It was they were taking my identity. This is the biggest thing I'd ever built in my life. I had employees. I had, executives that trusted me. I had people that loved me. I'd built a solid business. I had customers that I felt connected to and tied to. It was my whole identity.
And none of that was outlined at this point anyway,
No.
right? Like what employees are going to stay on, what relationships are they keeping client wise? Yeah, that's frightening.
They're just taking
that
it
is
all.
that is your everything.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And so I get there and I was thinking, what could I be grateful for? And I was just mad. And I thought, you know what? I'm getting 7 years of my life back. 7 EBITDA, 7 times. Okay, what would I do? I was 27. I said, if I was 34 today, where would I want to be? And what if I had all this capital? And I didn't even know how they were going to pay me at this point. I just knew they gave me a number. And so in my mind, I knew that number, but I thought they might pay that out to me over 2 or 3 years. They might give it in stock. I don't know. And so I started thinking, what would I do in 7 years? And I started thinking, and I started kind of getting positive, like, okay, well, actually, I get 7 years of my life back. I'd spend more time with my kids. I would go invest in more things. I would go build more businesses. And so I really made 2 promises before I got back in there. One was, I'm never going to sit on this side of the table again and not know not know this game. And number 2 was, I'm going to live my life like I would want to live it at 34 today. Like, I'm going to start living right now. So when I got back to the table that day, and I signed the papers, and I got a majority of that money, within.
So they did a good job. Yeah,
they did a great
Semi-liquid,
job.
yeah.
And I mean, they're the world's largest ad agency. I mean,
Sure,
they had the cash,
Yeah.
and so some of it was deferred, but I got a lot of it. And
So what was the next move?
so the next move, crazy enough, was the investment in the insurance company, which then led to the 76 exits. It was a kind of a wild time period where I was looking. Now, I invested in some real estate and tried to defer some of my investments, my taxation burden and stuff like that. But it was interesting because I sat there and when they were signing, he goes, "You don't seem as mad today." And I said, "I'm not." I said, "I'm actually good with it." And he was like, "You are?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, number one," I said, I made 2 promises. I said, "Number one," I said, "I'm never sitting on this side of the table again." And he just kind of looked at me. I said, "I'm going to play this game better than you've ever played it." And I said, "And I'm not taking advantage of people like you're taking advantage of me." I said, "I'm going to sit over there and I'm going to make sure that the guy sitting on this side of the
Doesn't
table
get blindsided. Yeah, 100%.
He's gonna understand the game
ins and outs,
and we're gonna make this win-win. Like I'm not doing this." And he said, "Okay." I said, "And I'm going to start living my life 7 years in the future, but now."
Have you ever shopped that deal like in your head or like given the market at the time? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Was it a 9? Was it a 9.2? Like,
I think because I had a
Yeah.
4-year contract with those big groups, it was probably fair, but it probably should have been 9 to 10.
Yeah.
But more than that, it was they didn't give me the value of what I was about to produce. I was really getting valued off of what I already produced. So even though I had these new contracts,
Sure.
I would have, again, that's where I come up with I left $30 million on the table because.
Oh, that's the number. So that's the number.
Yeah,
Okay.
30 million.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's
Yeah.
what I believe I left on the table because of how they bought it off of me. But in the end, I walked away with a good amount of money, and I turned that into a $1 billion exit. So it's like you can't again. It goes back to what my mom said was so true, and that is if you can rehearse gratitude in your worst moment, right? All of a sudden, it takes that. Usually, it creates ceilings in our life. I could have walked out of that moment thinking I was the guy that got taken advantage of. I was the guy that got screwed. I was like we take on that persona.
Sure.
Like, man, I was the guy that got screwed. I don't even know if you've ever heard me tell the story before. We've known each other for years.
Yeah.
And it's because it doesn't define me. What defines me is what I did after that. And that's what happens when you find gratitude.
There's a small argument there that the chip they put on your shoulder that day, though, was was the win in itself, right? Because and that might have been worth $30 million when you now look back, right?
It was worth 100 times 30 million.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a cool story. Do you bump into any of these? Were they already like super old school dinosaurs on their way out? Do you bump into it? Because it is a small world once you start
Very
playing the
small
PE
world.
world. Do you bump into these guys?
So I about 5-6 years ago, during the time period I was exiting all the other companies, I was in New York City at an investment bank, and I caught a glimpse of a guy, and the guy, he just looked, he was 10 years older. And I realized that was him. And I walked over and shook his hand, talked to him. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm actually on a tour right now, basically selling companies." I said, "I've already got a big exit with my insurance company. That one we exited over 800 million." I was like, "I got
that story I've heard because you get really
yeah.
cranky because you guys didn't crack that billion.
That's
to be-
right.
Yeah.
Yep. And he was like, congratulations. Like, he was happy for me.
Good. Genuinely happy.
Genuinely happy. And I was genuinely grateful, and like shook his hand, told him, you know what, like the lesson you taught me that day could have defined me, but it didn't. You know, like I'm here because of the lesson you taught me. And so that's where that genuine gratitude comes in.
How would you say, like, if we go back to the rehearsing gratitude, because that is a powerful concept that I want to make sure my listeners, you know, so we have a thing we do inside the program where we and again, we say practice gratitude. That seems to be the common turn of phrase. And we have this thing called the gratitude circuit, and you either do a prayer or a gratitude circuit every morning, and you post them.
Sure.
But I agree with you. Like, it's like anything, like when practicing meditation, like you have to continue to do this thing, because like it's not, you're kind of going through the motions. And how do you actually, because you could feel real gratitude, like it's game changing.
It is.
And it's hard to be cranky or pissed off, or it changes your perspective. That's why we try to do it early in the morning.
Right.
But rehearse for, like, I mean, is that's something your mom kind of coined or came up with on her own based on, I mean, obviously you guys had some things you're dealing with.
It was just, you know, it wasn't really her. What it was just her constant pushing it. And then for me, it was just a recognition that gratitude doesn't happen the moment that you express it. You know, like a lot of times it's like, you know, gratitude isn't felt until it's expressed. It's like, sometimes you have to express it multiple times before you ever actually feel
I agree.
it.
Yeah.
And that was where the rehearsing comes in. It's like rehearsing is about just doing it over and over and over again until it's real, you know, and or it's fluid. And so to me, it's just been, it's a practice that I put in place.
Okay. So let's pivot a little bit. You know, I have a lot of experience with you inside of the Empire game. I absolutely love it. You know, I teach it to my guys, depending on where they're at in their journey. And to your point, it can be applied no matter where you are in your journey. Some guys kind of freak out about it when they're in that hustler early on stage. Obviously, it's mandatory once you get to viability and you're even thinking about scale. Because if you don't have ops, you're dead in the water. I know we've taken like the predictive index, and you know, I kind of joke sometimes when I talk about like being the captain, because we've actually done it recently in my group again with PI. I think, and I'll float this by you, the problem with being a quote unquote captain is, and for those listening that are maybe more familiar with EOS, because it's a little more, you know, common, it's almost like visionary and integrator. And the problem with the ability to do it all, for me anyway, and this is definitely holding me back in my journey right now, is I do it all. Because I can cast a vision and crush the ops.
Sure.
And then I have that story like, I'll just do it all because I can do it pretty well.
Right. And typically better than others.
And you found, you know, like this not new, I guess probably a few years now, like this working relationship. You guys have a partnership with you and Cordell. He's obviously 100% visionary. I'm sure he's a maverick. Has he tested it?
Yeah. And he's like a maverick, like off the chart, right? Like everything's like outside of the bounds, you know? So
he seems like it.
Yeah.
But that's beautiful because you're definitely super ops, but then you can also reel in and do a lot of visionary stuff too. Because again, I can't imagine, and for my guys listening, we're talking about this thing called predictive index. We'll drop a link. You can check it out. I think it's one of the best ones in terms of
I do too.
You know, 16 personalities and Enneagram. Those are cool, but this is business specific, and it's better than DISC. It's better, and all that to say, you know, we cracked some jokes because like Cutback D, we had a lot of similarities in it. But for me, I feel it's holding me back. And so I've been watching your journey. Like Aspire's been beautiful to watch. I remember when you guys first started doing it, I'm like, man, these guys are putting out some freaking money. And I actually didn't know Cordell at all. I know Fleischman more than I know Cordell.
Sure.
And Fleischman's fairly new in that journey, or how?
He is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
He is. Yeah, I you know, it's interesting you're saying all of that, because I think that a captain, for those of you kind of watching, a captain is somebody who has vision, but also has the ability to create the operational structure to support the vision. So you either have to have somebody who's so big in vision that you can support it, that it kind of fits inside of it, or you start to overrun all of them. And what I find is,
how did you make that call? Because you had to find him and then kind of be subservient at times to his vision, and that's hard for me.
And honestly, what I believe that we are is, I think we're the CEO whisperer as much as we can be the CEO. Oftentimes, a true visionary maverick, they can't tell you what they're actually feeling, thinking, dreaming. It's just a big dream, and typically it's very ethereal. I think where we have the ability, Andrew, he'll say it this way. He'll say, I'm the dreamer, and Eddie's actually the dream maker. And what he's saying is like, he actually can translate the dream and actually make the dream come to life. And so never subservient, I would say complementary, in that our visions have to align, and we're true partners, like 50-50 partners. And so he can't do something that I don't want to do, and I can't, vice versa. I can't.
Yeah,
do
maybe
something he doesn't
subservient was the wrong word.
No, but in the
yeah.
end, it's like I don't think a captain does not do well in a secondary role
100%.
often either, right? Like I've got enough vision that I'm going to go do it myself if I can't tie into something else. But where it is subservient, I think, is sometimes in the hierarchy of how far out he sees. Oftentimes he's seeing 10 years down the road and I'm seeing 5, right? And so we're just trying to make sure that alignment is happening. But I'll tell you what I realized is a captain is great at running small teams that run big teams. We don't do well running big teams. The reason is because our expectation is typically higher than anybody else around us. Like we have a very high expectation, and it's really hard to meet the standard that we create. And so in creating that standard, what I really have to find is some really high performers that then can translate that down again, and that really is what big business is about, is like you have to have someone at the top. Oftentimes, if you read books about these crazy visionaries, the Steve Jobs and these guys, it's like, they're borderline sociopaths.
Sure.
And they're crazy sometimes, and there's an entire book that talks about the mental disorders of leaders. And so what you have to do is you have to be able to
like filter it down a couple times.
Filter it down a couple of times, the bigger the organization.
That makes sense.
It's interesting. I was the interim CEO of a Fortune 500 for about 6 months while they were trying to find their new CEO. And when I was doing that, what was interesting to me is how stifled I felt in that area. I mean, this is a $120 billion company, and it's like because there was a board, because there was
a lot of red tape,
publicly traded.
Yeah.
Like we don't do well in that either. But there are people that fit really well in there. And I don't necessarily fit well in the startup phase. I don't like taking something off the ground. I'm too much of a perfectionist when I'm trying to get something off the ground. My coffee company, it took me forever to get it. Now that it's up and running, now it's scaling, now it's growing. But it took me forever to get there.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So then, what would you recommend to someone like me or a listener that's similarly situated?
Yeah.
Because I'm 3 years in. I would say we're into viability ish.
Mm-hmm.
We had a rough year trying to make some pivots, but I guess what I'm saying is I agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
My staff would be dying right. They're going to listen to this and just fall over.
Yeah.
The standards, good luck,
Right.
And then also, I'm such a perfectionist; it's keeping us stuck.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah. So you're in a position to buy a company that's already past startup and move. But if you were to start something from scratch, like the coffee thing, how did you get past startup phase then? Because
it just takes a long time.
Okay.
If I'm going to be at the helm, it's going to take a while to get from startup into perseverance and perseverance into viability. So where for the past, let's say 7-8 years, I've spent more time acquiring companies that already have the pieces that I can work with, rather than trying to start something from scratch. You take a Maverick and Andrew, he can't wait to go start something new. He lives his whole life. And it's funny because most people, like you take a Maverick, if you would have asked Andrew 4 or 5 years ago, are you the guy that takes businesses to scale? He'd been like, oh yeah, that's not true. He's great from 0 to 5 million. After 5 million, the wheels start coming off the cart, Yeah. I'm great at 1 million to 1 billion, right? Like you give me something that actually has something tangible, I can go do something with that, But I would say that it's understanding truly where your strengths lie. That's where you need to play. For me, with 15 million baby boomers leaving their business, in the next 7 years, and less than 1% of them will actually sell their business. It is for guys like us that need that already existing asset and infrastructure. Yeah. It's the perfect time to be in business. I mean, you can get owner finance businesses nonstop right now.
And I actually want to touch on that for a second, because I think some people may turn off as they hear these stories. They're like, oh my gosh, what does he mean take it from 1 to I can't even get to 1 or 2 or whatever. And then what does he mean go and grab a business that's already moving? I don't have Eddie's capital. I want to defeat that story for my listeners, because to your point, we've been able to acquire, dental offices. Let's do that real quick. You've got a 65, 70-year-old guy. Right. Can't pass it down to his kid because he didn't go to dental school.
Doesn't want to sit in the seat anymore.
Most of these guys can't pass it down, even if it's not a professional license, because the millennial group doesn't want to do the work. So the home services are hot right now. Right. But to your point, doesn't want to sit in the chair anymore. He's still running carbon copy receipt. You can go plug in a basic, your basic cut and paste ops and just really, change his margins and then cash him out with his own money. So when you say owner finance, I think I want to make that clear for my audience. You can go and buy a company tomorrow with $0 out of pocket.
Yeah.
And most people will take that golden parachute. That dude will take $300K a year to not have to work, or maybe he works for another year to get some things going with the money that you're going to create, because you're going to completely change the way he's playing the game.
He'd rather you do all the work for a long period of time and him get a payout.
Yep.
The other thing too is most people, especially when they're at retirement years, they don't want to take this massive tax hit by actually exiting with cash. And if they could take it over time, or they can create some sort of an owner-financed, promissory note structure, then their taxation is going to be so much less. They get to keep 20% more of their money if it's structured properly. So, and this is such a massive stat right now. 15 million baby boomers are going to leave their business that they own in the next 7 years. It's massive.
And they're just going to turn the sign on the door till we're done.
Done. They're going to walk out.
Exactly.
They're going to walk out. And I think that's the true wealth transfer. The true wealth transfer is not a baby boomer trying to give their grandchild cash or a house. I think what it is it's actually their clients that they possess in their business, and it's going to dissipate back into the marketplace, And so for me to buy those, like we're rolling up tax firms right now, like CPA tax, firms. And so our main brand is called Checkmate Tax Advisory, and I'm buying, we've bought 3 so far.
So real quick, just for the word roll up, again, I've got a wide audience. Like I know what it means, but when you say we're rolling up, what does that mean?
Meaning I'm buying multiple brands, typically like we just talked about from baby boomers or others that are tired of it, or it's just it's not their level of success they want.
Sure.
We're buying them typically.
So multiple tax firms enroll and bringing them all into one
brand.
Correct.
Yeah, one brand with multiple offices.
And then what are the quick highlight benefits to that?
Yeah, so there can be a benefit where they can stay and play long term, right? And they can stay in the bigger picture and maybe get shares. Or in this one, I'm literally doing it in a way that they get a payout. So it establishes.
But for you guys, the structured ops.
For us, it's already existing client base.
Yeah.
A workforce. The workforce is more important to us than anything, right? Like, you can't just go find, accounting majors out of your local college and they're already up to speed on tax prep, So the workforce is the most important piece. So customers, workforce, established operating structures, that's where we're good.
You're going to revamp. Exactly. So you're going to bring
that.
6 different mom and pops to say, all right, this is the new ops system. And once you guys all get on board, the margins are going to change.
I have a predetermined, with you take our mastermind, the greatest need, we've done a lot of data science on that group of people. The greatest need they have is tax. Like, they need Ernst & Young style tax prep and forethought, but they've got a business that's $1 to $5 million. And so they're not going to get Ernst & Young. They're going to get H&R Block.
Sure.
And the thing is they're going to get to talk to them in November and hope that they find some tax savings, Well, we can redo that, give them entirely new tax structure, tax planning throughout the year, quarterly meetings, stuff like that. We can charge a premium, but in the end, they're going to have all that cost savings.
It's interesting you say that. I caught that, but and maybe because I was hanging out with Andrew for 2 days a couple weeks ago, the data piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
data's everything.
Because it's like, okay, we can go in and we can go and attack any market niche, but let's figure out what our current customer base needs. They need, like you said, Ernst & Young quality tax services.
Sure.
And they can only swing an H&R cut because they're 1 to 5 million, wherever they're at. And you guys have, because he was just hammering on at different points when he was talking about the amount of data you guys have collected and how valuable it is if you can actually analyze it and then make a decision based off of it. Because I think
the data science is crazy, and that's why I always believe in building community first. And so, like, everything I've ever built is community based. So think Realty, the American Association of Private Lenders, Aspire. It's just a community. And in the end, then you do a bunch of data science on that, and you enrich it by adding additional data sources to it.
Yeah,
fill out, and then you look at it. And from my perspective, what I've always done is I look at the service-based spending that they're already doing. So you look at their P&L. You say, where are you spending money at? Okay, you're spending money on tax prep. Would you be willing to transfer that money over to here and trust me more? Yes, we'll do it. Well, now I have 2,500 people that are like, we'll gladly move over.
No, like, and trust is there. You have technically a better product.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's something they're already spending. So they're just moving dollar to dollar. Sure. They're not creating new spending habits with us. Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. We should drop this episode. I'm learning so much from my. That's very well done. Talk to me about bringing Fleischman on. I mean,
Yep.
that's a big move.
Dan's a minority partner in some of the things that we do.
Okay.
He
Just another good human being, though. Like,
he's good.
as
Yeah,
far as
and
like
Dan's
helping people.
Dan's
Yeah.
really big on altruism, and he's got the world's largest toy drive, and he just does a bunch of really cool stuff. And Dan really is tied to more the Aspire Tour than anything else. In that he helps us with our talent and talent development. Like he's got a big Rolodex
Yeah, he
of
does.
people
Gotcha.
that we can go after, and not as needed as it was in day one, but in the early days when we first started working with Dan, it was we were trying to convince these guys that we were viable and
Yeah.
real, and now we have people calling us saying, should I be on your tour?
You guys are going to do some internationals this year, right? Coming
We
up
are.
in 25.
Yeah, we're working on
I've
international.
watched the Aspire Tour. I'm like,
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot of big names and the Kevin
Yeah.
Harts and Magic Johnsons and
Yeah.
Mike Tysons. But like you said, now they're pounding on your door,
Yeah.
like A-Rods, all the things, right? And so
Yeah.
what you guys have built, and man, who's running? That's like it's almost like a music tour, like a concert tour. Like you guys are, because you're doing the big one, then you're doing the 2 or 3 little ones, and you're
Right.
coming right back to that same town over
Right.
and over and over. You guys have to be exhausted.
It's been one of those time periods where you feel the momentum and you just know that you got to put the time in because it is there. And I think that those seasons of our life, I think many people miss them. They try to like maintain this like homeostasis, and they don't realize like, no, there's something happening, and you have to ride that momentum when it's happening. And that's where we are. Like we're 21 shows into the Aspire Tour. And
Those are the big boy shows, not counting all the.
And that's 22. Essentially, that's 22 months worth of work. And we have the next 12 lined out, and then we've got international and so on and so forth. And these shows are, you've seen them. They're 3,000 to 5,000 people in big auditoriums, and we've done bigger ones. We did the Toyota Music Center in Dallas. We did Madison Square Garden in New York City. I mean,
Yeah, I know Nashville was one of your smaller ones.
it was
per
one.
se. Sure.
That was, Nashville is our very first kind of smaller market. But what we were trying to do was see if we could scale back our production slightly, bring it back, and then actually go after the smaller market, because Nashville probably not the greatest entryway into the smaller markets, but because you guys have so much talent here everywhere all the time.
The entrepreneur scene here is blowing up.
It is.
I will
But
say that.
LA gets these type of things all the time, New York, Chicago. So we're trying to get into these smaller markets. So like we'll do smaller markets this year. We'll do Charlotte, San Antonio, some of these like smaller ones. And we'll pull it back just a little bit just to see how it goes.
Yeah. And so is that, and I don't want to like, unpack your model, but like I noticed when you guys came here, you do your big one, then you've got like stages in real estate, and then is there another one or no?
Yeah, wealth. And
Right. So you come back to that city 3 times, bang, bang, bang?
I come back twice. Andrew typically comes back 3 times.
Man.
Yeah. Andrew, though, is not involved in the operations of our business. I oversee our private equity firm, Collective Influence. Andrew pretty much just stays on the road and speaks, and he loves it.
Yeah.
So,
That's insane.
yeah.
It's a lot of work.
We pretty much do Aspire.
It's like a Taylor Swift tour. Like it
is.
Because you guys are bringing all of that.
We do. We have
Yeah.
our own AV company. We do our own setup. We got our own semis. Yeah, it's wild.
That's insane.
Yeah, we got 25, $30 million invested in it. I mean, we've got a lot into it.
And it's how old?
It's 22 months old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and I don't know if it's a loaded question, but of all of the things that you've built or that you're currently, owning and operating right now, which one which one do you love? Like when that one comes
Yeah.
across your crazy calendar, you're like,
Yeah.
you feel a little different about it?
I love Aspire still. It wears on you, but I've never desired the stage. But when you realize what the stage does and what it represents, I had a conversation a long time ago where I was kind of avoiding all exposure till 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I was happy to just stay in the background, build my businesses, and no social media presence, stuff like that. And really in the last 2 years is when I decided, okay, it's time. And that exposure has brought so many opportunities. It's brought great employees. It's brought capital. It's brought, a lot of things that I, didn't know existed until we did it. So I love Aspire. And my favorite's always my coffee brand. I mean, we're expanding. We got 5 new shops coming this coming year and maybe more.
Have you had any of our coffee in Nashville since you've been here?
I always have. Coffee in Nashville is actually pretty solid.
It's pretty decent.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
very
because I know
decent.
you're like
Yeah,
you're
I'm hardcore.
South America flying
Yeah.
in, making it from
Yeah.
scratch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What coffee place in Nashville for my listeners in Nashville?
So there's a bunch of them, and there's one I need to look it up because I literally was just there today, and it is I gotta tell you, I don't want to mess it up. They did such a good job today.
While he's looking that up, for those of you who don't know, like his coffee reco would be something to run with because when you learn about what he's built, is it just the Atlanta? How many locations do you guys have now?
We're at 5 physical, and we have some now trailers and different things like that. So we're at 6 or 7, and then we got 5 more on the horizon that are already kind of pre-funded and ready to go. So this place is called Frankie Rose Coffee, and Frankie Rose, they're on Church Street, which is close to Broadway downtown. And it was actually really solid. They got good specialty roast coffee, and they took care of me today. But they were really good.
There
Probably
you
one
go.
of the better ones that I've had in Nashville.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah. It's interesting because we've got that. I don't know. I don't want to say the word Austin, but that eclectic music-y vibe, and so coffee is a bigger thing out here than even in SoCal. It wasn't as big as I'm seeing it out here. Yeah.
No. It goes back to there's something about music and coffee that goes well together. Seattle, I mean, kind of the whole grunge scene tied to the first big coffee movement in the U.S. And it seems like anything that has a big music scene always has a big coffee scene. And I think it's just the artistry of it. Like people that are into coffee are really artists, So.
And then what's going on? So I need to get back down. Talk to me about the big move down to Jacksonville. I've been there once. I think you guys were barely moving in-ish, right? You were showing me what's possible. I have to come see it. I've seen obviously footage on social and stuff, but that place looks like a monster. Is that like the main hub now for everything you guys are building?
Yeah, main hub. We live, so that's in Ponte Vedra, which is just south of Jacksonville by 15, 20 miles. And we moved there for various reasons. One, I wanted to be in Florida. Andrew did as well. We had looked at Tampa. We had looked at various other places. And the Economic Development Board of Florida really was pushing that. So they give a lot more tax credits and stuff like that if you're moving employees into Jacksonville. It's really the last undeveloped kind of frontier of Florida. And I've timed my real estate investing well in Tampa, in Cape Coral, and other areas of Florida. And this is kind of the last big one. So we're doing a lot of real estate there. And the other part of it was I liked the cost of living for recruitment. So like if I was going to recruit somebody to Tampa or Miami, it's tough sometimes. We recruited a lot of the people from Utah, Kansas City, Atlanta, and it was easier to recruit them to Jacksonville. It has its drawbacks because it's still a medium-sized market. By landmass, it's the largest city in the United States for how big Jacksonville is. It's massive, but
is it right next to one of the oldest cities in the United States too?
Yeah, St. Augustine.
There you go.
Where I have a coffee shop in St. Augustine. That's the oldest city in the United States, and so it's a really cool market. It's up and coming. I mean, there's
Tebow still out there, or
Tebow's still there. He lives right up the street. It comes to the office all the time. It's interesting how many people have moved out there. So you got Ed Milet just bought a spot there. He's out there full time. You got Mark Slamonis lives there. Chris Patterson, big coach, Tim Tebow. You got a bunch of people that have moved into that marketplace, and it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
So I know we're both car junkies. I don't know if we'll go play around in mine when we leave here. But last time I get to mess around in your car, I don't want to plug it too bad, but what are you driving? You're worse than me. I buy them, take them straight to the shop, play with them, and then I get bored. But I
can't help it.
Yeah, you still playing with them?
So I do, and I need to do more media on them. My team does, but to me it's just what I love, but I don't really publicize it too much. But I had the McLaren 600 LT, which is really their track version, and I had that all modified, and I just sold it to a guy. I had a GT3 RS that I was doing stuff with. I sold it. I actually just ordered a Targa 911 Targa 4S, the all-wheel drive, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff to it right now. But my buddy that owns a big car dealership there, he just called me 2 days ago, and he was like, "Hey, I got the brand new Lamborghini Huracan Technica in 2024." He was like, "Let's do a trade on your Targa."
How tall are you?
And so I'm 6'2".
You can't fit in a Huracan.
I can. No. Yeah. But what I love about the Huracan, so like everybody's talking about the Revolto and all that stuff, or how you pronounce that thing. What I love about the Huracan Technica is it's similar to my Audi, the V10. So it has the V10. They're easy to twin turbo. And so you can take this Lamborghini that's 300 grand or 350, whatever it is, and you can turn that into a car that's 10 times faster than the fastest Lamborghini on the street,
Yeah.
for not a ton of money, and so that's what if I pick this up, we're negotiating right now. If I pick that one up, then I'm gonna twin.
So you
turbo
have
it.
a shop you obviously trust out there, because that's the
yeah.
hard thing with moving
Yep.
somewhere. When I was in SoCal forever, I had my guy, and he drove my cars more than I did. My wife would always argue. She's like, he always has one of your things. He's at a show with it.
Yeah,
but
my guy's in Atlanta, and so
that's what I was gonna ask you.
I literally
Okay, so
send him up to Atlanta.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I have a guy in that did some stuff on my GT3 RS in Jacksonville that was pretty good. He just doesn't have all the equipment to test it all like the guy in Atlanta. So, yeah.
That's not bad. Are you would you put Porsche over everything?
I'm a Porsche guy. I mean,
PDK?
man, the PDKs. I did some track hours a couple weeks ago with my 18-year-old, and that GT3 RS is just.
Yeah.
I mean, we drove we were taking out the brand new Ferrari 296, the half electric, half gas twin turbo V6 within the electric motor, and that thing's 900 horse. And it was fun, and it was crazy, and it felt like a slingshot when it would take off. But you
I can't get behind that.
You just can't.
They all have torque. The electric's going to have more torque, but I
does.
can't play that game. My favorite Ferrari, it was still 812 Super. Well, it was the original 599 GTB, but the super fast. But they just replaced that too.
They did. They're just redoing it. Yeah,
12 cylindry or whatever it's called, right? So
I think I'm a GT3 RS guy.
Yeah.
I love the naturally aspirated. The GT2 is incredible, but the GT3 RS is just. It's the ultimate track car.
Yeah, track car, yes. I just can't do NA. Like, I'm a turbo junkie. Like, the same thing, if I would have bought the V10, it's going straight to twin turbos because I just,
That I twin turboed that Audi.
The R8 that we were driving.
The V10 Plus R8. And when I turboed that, it changed my mind on everything. An all-wheel drive twin turbo that's over 1,000 horse. I think it was like 1,196 horse or something. That thing was just ridiculous. Fun.
Because nowadays you can get past the lag. That was always the issue with those.
Yeah.
But
well, Porsche's coming out with this new electric turbo. Have you seen this?
No.
Net 2025 electric turbos, which essentially takes out all lag. Like, it's instantaneous turbo. And so that's gonna be fascinating. And that's what the only reason I thought about even trading my Targa in on this Lambo is that I would think I really want to go after this new electric turbo that Porsche is coming out with.
I'm just so weird on this electric.
Yeah,
game.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Like, I almost bought a Taycan not too long ago, and I was like, I can't.
I don't want an electric car.
Not full electric, but no, but they're bringing in components.
The component of an electric turbo where there is no spool time is super fascinating.
100%.
To me.
Yeah, if they could kill lag time, then that's a game changer.
It's everything.
Yeah. All right, so I have a really powerful question I asked. We still got a few minutes, but this is a question that the podcast is called Feedback. That's my favorite F word. I'm working on my F words. Actually, watered them down a lot so I could get on your stage one day. But feedback to me is life. Like, to me, feedback is
Andrew drops more F bombs than anybody I know, right? And he gets on the stage.
Yeah, it's his stage. I mean, so he was a phenomenal speaker. It's interesting you say that because having known you for that long, and then I bumped into Cordell here and there, like like Cole did Money Is, Long did, like I always saw him. We were in similar rooms. I never said one word to him, but watching him work his magic, he's you can tell he's been speaking for a long time. Just a great dude the way he does it. And there is a right and wrong way to drop it. You know what I mean? Because I don't think it bothered anybody in that room. And we're in the buckle of the Bible Belt.
We are.
You know what I mean? But the word feedback for me, like, I think even when we talk about your story earlier about leaving some chips on the table, and there was a moment for feedback, and if you can allow yourself to process it. But what is that word like when you hear that word? Knowing that my audience is typically male entrepreneurs trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
How would you relate feedback to your journey, or how do you process it, or what does it mean to you?
Feedback ties to emotional intelligence in my mind. In that you're getting feedback from any person you come in contact with. You're getting feedback from the relationships in your life. You're getting feedback from your employees. You're getting it from your customers. And true emotional intelligence is having a truthful conversation and relationship with that feedback that's coming back to you. And as opposed to pushing it off or not having a relationship with it, it's taking it through this kind of absorption model of what is true and what does need to change. So much of our subconscious kind of blocks just push that stuff out, and in the end, like, I'm on a journey and desire feedback. What's interesting is when I was doing $1 million business or $2 million business, I could find mentors everywhere. You exit a company for $1 billion, it's like you start looking for mentorship, and you're like, And nobody wants to give you honest feedback anymore. They
Yeah.
just, they kiss your butt and they tell you everything that you do is great. And you know what you really need in life at every single turn is somebody to go, no, that's actually not right.
Yeah.
Like what you believe about yourself is still wrong, or what action you're taking is not the right action. Like you need someone in your life. Everyone needs someone in their life that actually is dealing with capital T truth, not like our own little t truths
Oof.
that we build in our lives that become, selling something for $1 billion, all of a sudden I have all these little t truths in my life that go like, oh, this is my truth. This is what I went through.
So the
This
word
is what
"my
got
truth"
me.
that comment, that phrase, "my." So I love little t
Yeah.
versus big T.
Yeah.
I want to make sure my audience grabs that. But I heard someone destroy the concept of my truth recently because it was I can't remember her name, Angel Reese versus Caitlin
Yeah.
Clark, that whole
Yeah.
saga
Right.
around who was really
Right.
changing the game. And anyway, someone was trying to defend that something, and they kept saying my truth, and the guy was like, "Look, there's only the truth.
There's only the
the
truth.
truth.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what makes it the truth."
Yeah, truth is universal.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so when something becomes your truth, or it becomes isolated down to your concept that just affects you, but it doesn't necessarily become truth for someone else, then we should speculate as to whether it really is truth. And so you have to have feedback in order to be able to try those little t truths in your life to determine, are these actually capital T truths? Are these universal?
Yeah,
No.
I like that. Little T versus big T. And do you think people avoid those just because there's a feeling associated with it, right?
sure.
Right. Yeah. Like,
We build our own diatribes, we build our own pathways, and oftentimes our subconscious seats in whatever we've created that tell us these are the truths, and we just live by them.
Sure.
And oftentimes we lack consciousness to even understand the choices we do make. But that feedback, and usually it comes by way of behavior, right? Like the only way to truly change who we are is through behavior change. The only way to understand what behavior change you need is to actually look at the outcomes. You have to work backwards
yeah,
from the
and
outcomes.
that's why feedback. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like, the old FAFO model, F around and find out. Like,
Yeah.
the more willing you are to do that,
Right.
And the feedback is just the feedback,
Right.
It's a series of facts. There's
Yeah.
if you're not attached to the feedback, but you can process it
Right.
from a place of facts, not feelings.
Sure.
Then you can move forward.
Absolutely.
But people are so scared to lean into that because, like you said,
That's why I always say that, and I talk about this so much. One of my favorite books is called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. We had him out specifically just because I wanted to talk to him about that specific concept. He's big on Marcus
Stoicism.
Aurelius and
yeah, of course.
Stoicism.
He's got 365 Stoic.
And I love most concepts tied to that, but ego is the enemy I plug into that so hard because really it's ego that is the big wall that prevents any feedback from coming through, that it doesn't allow the truth to permeate your life and make change.
Woo.
Yeah.
We're just gonna clip that up right there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the timer right now, so I can clip it up later. That right there was worth it. So big T, little T. That sentence was an absolute mic drop. I love the concept of rehearsing gratitude. I want to spend a few minutes before we go to talk about impact others, because to me, and you see me usually when I speak from stage, my shirt says impact over income. I'm a huge advocate of, if you want to make $1 million, bro, like help 1 million people.
Right.
Help 1 million people, add enough value to the world where you could ask for $1. But the reality is, go make enough money to build the life that you want, and then start to realize, like, because we talked about cars and stuff, but like, I can promise you this, I know this man well enough. He's not out there making more money to buy more cars.
Yeah.
When you realize what this man has done for this world. Anyway, yeah, it's important to me that people understand how important impact is to you, because that's a big reason, like, I'm having you on, and that
Sure.
we continue to just, it's a beautiful thing. So
For me, you get to a place where another dollar, another car, another house, another vacation really doesn't mean anything. You make enough money and your lifestyle really doesn't change. I get to the point where I just trade the cars. I don't even keep all the cars. It's like, because what I realize is making an impact on someone else's life is far more fulfilling than doing anything else.
doesn't it feel selfish sometimes?
Yeah, it does. I actually am so fulfilled. I actually go to, we're in 103 countries now, maybe 106 countries. It just keeps growing. And every time I go, and we're there with the orphanages, the feeding centers, the clean water projects, the businesses we're building, I'm so fulfilled that I actually feel a little guilty. Like you got orphans and, all these kids that you're making a massive impact on their life. But, we're freeing slaves in Pakistan right now and just all kinds of crazy stuff around the world. And I get more fulfilled than I think they do.
The service you're providing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild, But I think that that's what I really want for most people. And that's really the ethos behind the Aspire Tours. I start off every morning with the Aspire Tour with that concept. Like, I'll teach you something. I'll bring some of the craziest people to the stage today to give you tips, tricks, secrets, whatever.
Sure.
But in the end, if you just spend it on yourself, you're going to get to a place where you're like me and you're going to find yourself empty. Like, I had $1 billion exit and still cried myself to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, still completely lost and
I hope
struggling.
people really sit with that though, because you may hear that in jest or in passing, and you kind of like, okay, guy, like it's more common than not that exact concept you just said. Like, I got to this place that I always thought I wanted to be, and for some reason it didn't feel like I was unfulfilled.
I think most people think that you hear these phrases like "heavy is the head that wears the crown." The heaviness that you feel is not the weight of the pressure of having employees or money or expectations. The way you feel, or the way I felt, was true insignificance. Like, okay, so I got all this stuff and I got all this money and I got all these things, and I still feel like my life doesn't matter. Like, to the point of like suicidal thoughts, like maybe I should just end it all. I mean, I went through a massive depression. I had the deepest, darkest parts of my life, and my wife was the only person that actually knew I was going through it, because I couldn't share that with anybody,
Sure.
And so in your deep, dark moments, I'm sitting there, tears in my eyes, laying in bed, trying to go to sleep and wondering, like, what is life even worth? And I got more money than anybody I know that's around me, like, I got more success than my family thinks
success.
I'm this. I got this family that around me that thinks I'm the most successful family, whatever. And it's like, and you sit there and you're like, but my life means nothing, I'm not, there's no fulfillment in these things. And so I always say this: I don't get mad at the guy that's taking a selfie with his jet and his, Rolls Royce as he pulls up and wearing the custom suits. I actually kind of applaud the guy. But what I say is hurry up and get that out of your system, because you're going to get to a place where you're lonely, sitting on your jet by yourself, flying to a destination where you don't even know if the people like you on your way, right? And at some point you're going to realize, like, I got to do something bigger. And so I always try to push people, like, get that out of your system, like, go. If you got to go buy a Lambo, go buy a Lambo. But talk to me after you're driving that Lambo for a month and realize, like, it really doesn't do much for you. Fly in your jet by yourself to a bunch of people that don't actually care about you, and call me and let's talk about what it means to actually find fulfillment.
Yeah, I really hope people are grabbing this, because there's a really powerful quote by Mark Twain, and he says, the two most powerful days in a man's life are the day he's born and the day he discovers why.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying everyone's purpose is service of others, but I do think that journey that you just described from success to significance, because to be that objectively successful, check all these boxes, etc., but your actual word was insignificant in that moment. What's the point? And I love that we obviously I'm not doing anything near what you're doing financially, but at the same time we have a similar thought process. Is like because you have to market that way, unfortunately. Like, I hate the fact that you have to kind of show them what they want to then give them what they need.
Right.
So we have to talk about, get to 7-8 figures, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I want everyone to get there just so they can feel how empty it is. Like, to your exact point. I mean, literally get there as fast as you can. You say it better, get it out of your system, but get there so you can go, hey, I did it. I'm not fulfilled. What's next, Nick?
Yeah.
Now we're going to start helping other people.
Let's
We're
do
going to help
something
other
real
people.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. So, like, have you been able to walk people through that path? Like, I mean, like, I would say intentional is not the right word, but have you built how do you, because everyone has to have their moment, their ha-ha moment. Maybe it is driving the Topanga Canyon in the Lambo and being like, that's not it. But like, I guess all you can do is really just show them as much, as get there to that quote unquote wealth standpoint as fast as possible, so you can realize how empty it is.
I've stopped worrying about convincing them that they don't need the Lambo, right? Like, one day it like dawned on me, and it's like, I was actually talking to this guy that has this massive podcast. He's out in Vegas, and he's 20 some years old, and all he wants to talk to me is like, what's the last car and stuff like that. I love cars, so I'll talk that all day long.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there thinking, I wanted to just tell him, like, this is not going to be good for you. You're not going to actually enjoy this. Like, and then I thought, you know what? And so that I thought, you know what? I needed to get it out of my system. Like, I needed to get past that point. Yeah. I actually needed to lay there by myself at nighttime and come to grips with who I really was. And I was like, you know what? I said, buy the Lambo. Go buy as many as you can.
Yeah.
And he's like, really? I said, yeah. I don't care. Go get in debt by the Lambo. I don't like. At some point, get it out of your system. If that's what you're driven towards right now, go find a way to do it. Find a way to do it, and because in the end, sometimes it takes that to move past it. There's people like me that it's like until you experience it, you can't stop fixating on it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's the majority of the audience is like, okay, guy, like I'll let you know when because you have all those or you have had and you continue to.
Yeah.
Then you get to say that. But until like you said, until I experience it, I'm not really understanding what you're saying.
That's why I stopped trying to convince people otherwise. Like I used to just be like, hey, let me tell you how much it sucks when you have a lot of money and you have no real friends and no connections, and they're like, oh yeah, whatever. It's like, okay, then just hurry up and get there, right? Yeah. And so most of my life is trying to hurry up and try to get people there, right? Like, okay, I'll show you. I'll give you everything you need to get there, right? Like whatever I can do to get there. And then what I do, what I typically do is I take people with me. So I take trips every single year, 4 or 5, where I take them to crazy places. I let them experience something, and then I'll navigate and narrate their experience. Let me tell you what's happening right now. Let me explain to you what's going on. Let me talk to you. We took a group to Guadalajara, Mexico, just a little while ago, and I had a bunch of really big business people there. And the one guy, super successful guy, I said, so we went to the orphanage that we built there and spending time with them, and we took the kids pizza and ice cream and all this stuff. Everybody here thinks like, oh, we're just going to like lavish that on them. And they want to do that and take them toys and stuff like that. And the kids are grateful. What the kids really want is time with you. Like they care less about the ice cream. Like they never had ice cream. Ice cream is a treat to them. In their mind, this is like a once in a lifetime thing. And they're like, it's going to go away anyways.
You know what else I learned? And you probably have learned this way more than I have, is we did this in Belize and we wanted to completely redo the orphanage. Mm-hmm. And we were told on multiple occasions, like every dollar you put into that will be hawked and sold and stuff, even by the group that you're doing it for, because they have a certain they have needs that are not with that. So you're like, we're gonna do brand new bedding and bikes and clothes, and we're gonna paint everything, and we're gonna upgrade the floors. We're gonna change the way that you guys live. And they're like, we're not used to living like that, and we'd rather take all of that stuff. And you see what I'm saying? So like it was interesting because we did some of it because we still had that intention.
We have 26 orphanages, and then I don't know, 30, 40, 50 feeding centers that do education. So we feed and educate about 4,300 kids a day right now globally, and most of them, we want them to have a nice place to live. We want them to have to hold a high level of standard for where they live, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where we messed up. We tried to create like an American lifestyle in their area, and they were like, "This is all going to get sold."
What is it? Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, but what was interesting is then at the end of the day, after we spent the entire day with the orphans, we brought the people back and brought the orphans, and we were hanging out with all of them, and we spent pretty much the whole day with them. And then I said, and they all were speaking Spanish, and so I said, I had somebody translating for them. I said, ask them what their favorite part of the day was. And they're expecting like, oh, and we brought them the soccer balls, and we brought them pizza and stuff like that. And the one orphan, who's probably like 7, looks up at the big guy next to me that's big business guy, and he goes, spending time with him. And like literally like him, like not anybody else, him.
Did it melt that dude?
Oh, that guy immediately just like, tear, like, wait, me? And he was like, him. Like something about him resonate, it's like, and he was like, this 7-year-old boy, I brought him everything. I spent money on him. That guy, he had bought a washing machine for like, he again, it's like, I want to solve problems. I want to, bring them things. And it was like spending time with him.
Wow.
Like, it's just like, but that's what it is.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Especially to be able to single him out because he'll remember that for the rest of his life.
The rest of his life.
And that, and you created that moment.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But that to me is the moment that hopefully is a moment that changes. Him, right, or changes the people that are there. And so I take dozens and dozens of people on these trips every year, typically decent sized business owners, to try to help them get to their moment faster.
Yeah, I love that. Like you're not manufacturing the moment, but you're trying to accelerate. Yeah, I'm gonna create this. I'm gonna set the table. Yeah, because if you can eat, like it's gonna change the way.
And then
we
talk through it. I mean, I architect bus rides. We're just we're in the bus together talking. And I don't try to take them so far out of their element that they're uncomfortable. I usually book 4- and 5-star hotels. I let them go back and have a good night's rest. I always give make sure they have good food. Like I'll give them a good standard because I like, instead of making them rough it, I actually like taking them out of the element and seeing like, oh man, I'm sitting here with this kid that, if we didn't give to this, he doesn't eat, like,
No, and reminding them I'm going to go back to my 4-star hotel and he's not,
The level of guilt that they feel to go back to that hotel that night, each night after we go work, is almost more than they can bear.
Yeah.
Like they'll tell me, I feel so bad. And I'm like, well, you do that when we go back to the U.S., right?
Yep.
Like that is just a representation where you're headed back to.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I absolutely love it. I'm trying to think of anything else we can wrap up with, because this has been like, I can already think of like 6 or 7 mic drop moments, which is great for my audience. I encourage, for those of you listening, to go back and really, really slow down some of the stuff when we got into the meat of some of the business stuff. Because again, in my experience, and we've got different guys at different levels inside the program, that cognitive dissonance is real. They just shut down when they hear these numbers,
right?
And these numbers are real. Like this is a dude. This is real. He's right in front of me.
Yeah.
He's got the same 24 hours. He's just a guy trying to figure it out, and he plays at a different level. But there's nothing, again, not to be rude or anything, there's nothing better about any of us in this room that you can't go out and figure this out.
Right.
And hopefully this inspires some people. You know what I mean?
It is, and that's the thing is, like, I always try to like point out the fact that I didn't have an education that brought me here. I didn't have, I had a dad that was an entrepreneur, and my dad, by chasing his dreams, kind of removed some of the fear that I had over chasing mine. But it wasn't like there was some roadmap, like all it was just a desire for what I wanted in the end. And that drove everything.
I think people get frightened around like the FAFO model. Like go out there and I call it decision velocity. Go and make a bunch of decisions and then just process the feedback.
Agreed.
And the more reps you get doing that, it's actually impossible to lose. You just have to keep getting up and keep processing the feedback.
It's the science of iterations, right? Like the more reps you get, the more change you get. It's, I was doing a virtual for Empire Operating System, and it's evolved quite a bit over the past few years as I've just continued to perfect and perfect and perfect. And she asked me, she's like, could you just sum it up in one word? I said, yeah. I said, it's enough operations that you get to make decisions every single week. I said, let me tell you why I win at the coffee game, because I make 52 great decisions because I have data in front of me. I have operations that tell me what the data is. And while Starbucks makes their decisions every month, I make them every single week. And in the end, it's the chance to make 52 great decisions.
Those your win meetings?
The win meetings. Yeah. It's like that. Those iterations change everything.
Weekly important numbers.
Yeah.
All right. I'm showing up so he knows I still remember all my Empire stuff, but I'm also trying to get
That's how we beat Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
It's like we literally have weekly important numbers. We have win meetings every single week. We look at our numbers and we make my data is reconciled every single week, and they make a decision once a month, right? They make 12. I make 52.
I actually took your stoplight report. I just built out a massive planner. That was yesterday's thing I did for 8 hours, but there's a section around your 90 days, and you can mark it off done or not, or you can do red, yellow, green. And because I'm trying to create program recognition, pattern recognition. So I want you to see that and be like, wow, Saturday and Sundays I keep dropping the ball, or Wednesdays I'm in the yellow every Wednesday. What's going on? Like just things like that. So the stoplight report is fascinating to me as well. Yeah. It's just a quick glance, and what it really is an insight to your program.
Yes.
So
you got it.
Well, cool, brother. We could go on for hours because I absolutely love everything that you're doing. I love everything that you're about. I'm glad we got to get this done. I know last time it didn't work out because I think, you didn't come out, and Andrew did for the stages one, right? I got to get to Jacksonville.
Anytime.
Anything you want to drop for these guys on the next Aspire Madness, or any way to serve you here?
I would love for them to check out 2 things. I'd love for them to check out the Aspire Tour, and if they're in a city near us and they're tied to you, just DM me. I'll give them free tickets to the tour. I'd love to have them, right? Number 2, I'd love for them to check out Impact Others. If they go to social, stuff like that, if you don't already have some sort of a tie back or a give back, let us help you find a way to give back through what you do.
That's phenomenal. Number one, my man's literally just giving away stuff to Aspire. And if you get in one of those rooms, like I went to the Nashville one, obviously, everyone I know, because they're all situated everywhere, every time you go to their city, they go to your event. The access to speakers, the energy, the data, the things you walk away with is phenomenal. So to get that for free is insane. Impact Others. I'll just break it down real quick, and we'll wrap this up. There's this thing called the 3% rule, and I can prove to you on paper, so hit me up, we can have this conversation. If you put 3% from your top line revenue into something larger than you, and I suggest you just push it straight to Eddie because he's got the infrastructure, he's in 100 some odd countries, you actually have a 9% increase in top line revenue. So I push 3% to Eddie. I'm doing good things for good people, which I should be doing anyway. 9% uptick in revenue because now my people are working towards something besides KPIs around dollars and hitting these certain quarterly targets, et cetera. They're helping people. You get Saturdays worked, you get better hours worked, you get longer hours worked, the buy-in, the company culture, the length that you keep employees. Like I could go, the list goes on. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, that's the internal. The external optics of the company that is now helping other people. Mm-hmm. When Miss Jones has to choose between roofer A and roofer B, she's choosing the roofer that is truly impacting others. Yeah. So this ends up at a 9% uptick, which is a 6% delta. I hate to present it this way, but you actually will make more money if you genuinely care about other people. Yeah. So, let's figure out what that looks like because I'm a big proponent of that.
Love it.
I think we're done for today. Feedback with your boy Nick Alfano. Thank you, Mr. Eddie Wilson.
Thank you.
Let's connect. Let's figure it out. Let's drive cars and help people.
Sounds good.
All the things.
Thank you.
Thank you.